The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. There we go. Got to unmute. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm a little flustered after what has gone on today alone in the NFL. Guys, it is The Extra Point. Hello, everyone. I am Ryan Justice. Andy will be joining me here in a second. Hope you guys had a good 3-day weekend for all of you that applied to. Man, what a crazy week 6 in the NFL that went along with it, guys. A lot to cover today. We had some big news today with some trades as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Some teams needing some very big pieces and getting those added to their teams. An owner who very prominent in the league, making his voice heard. But man, today alone, since maybe about 4 o'clock our time, with the trades and everything, excuse me, guys. Since 4 o'clock about that time, our time, with the trades going on. And of course, earlier today with what happened out in Dallas, I mean, where do you start? We know where to start. We start with hot topics, as we always do, leading off the show. As we said, some big trades happening today. Davante Adams goes to the Jets. Amari Cooper to the Bills. These were trades. The Cooper to the Jets trade was one that was pretty much written in stone. From the moment Adams requested a trade, it was not a well-kept secret that he wanted to go back and play with Aaron Rodgers. I know that the Robert Saleh firing kind of muddied the waters, but I think the loss last night to the Bills really pressed the need for them to have a bona fide number one receiver. Some people could say, you could argue it's Garrett Wilson. Bringing in Davante Adams could probably help facilitate the communication between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. And of course, it gives you the weapon that is Davante Adams. I'll elaborate a little bit more once we get into game reactions, but this is something interesting for the Jets that I think is going to be. It's going to make the Jets a little bit easier to watch. I did see an improvement last night after they switched over from Nathaniel Hackett to from play calling, and there was an improvement from the Jets. I will say that, and Davante Adams I think adds to that, gives them another weapon to play with, gives Aaron Rodgers another piece to the puzzle, one that he's familiar with, one that he has a great rapport with, one that he scored a lot of touchdowns with, and I don't know if ultimately this is going to turn the season around for New York, but I do feel like it is definitely a step in the right direction for making them more competitive, for making them a team that is not just an absolute joke to watch in this league. And, Aaron Rodgers even last night had flashed a little bit. Cooper to the Bills. I think the Bills are kind of realizing as well that they need a number one receiver. Maybe the Diggs trade hurt a little more than they thought. Amari Cooper still has it in him to be a number one wide receiver. Kudos to him for getting out of the situation in Cleveland where the offense was just imploding on itself. It was going nowhere with Deshaun Watson. And, if I was him, I would want out too, because they're sticking to their guns in Cleveland. And it looks like Kevin Stefanski, as good of a coach as he is going to go down with the ship. The Deshaun Watson ship in Cleveland. But Cooper to the Bills, I think, is big because it gives Josh Allen a weapon that is going to dictate coverages. It's going to dictate where the secondary lines up. It's going to dictate where the rest of the receivers can play. and maybe even play to some of their strengths, because Cooper is still a big physical wide receiver. He's still a guy with some speed. And it's funny because I was seeing people point out today what the trade value of Amari Cooper was, because he was traded, I believe, for a third um, to the Bills, and the Cowboys had traded him in 2022 for like a fifth. So Amari Cooper still plays at a very high level, still plays at a very efficient level, and he's still out there to really hurt some teams if they need to, if they let him. So, but yeah, big trades happening in the NFL today. Cam Akers also back to the Vikings from the Texans. He was kind of stuck down on the depth chart. He was brought in because they I guess they wanted to add some variety with Mixon and Pierce both back and both looking productive for the Texans. Cam Akers did find his workload getting drastically cut, so he goes back to the Vikings where he can line up and be productive like he was for them last year. Came out today. I'm interested to see how this ends up. I didn't think he would get it back, but Russell Wilson makes his season debut this weekend. He was getting first team reps with the Steelers. He was battling a calf injury since the beginning of the season. He's been out. He was the backup last week to Justin Fields, and now it's looking like he is going to be the starter this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not going to lie. The Steelers are on a roll with Justin Fields, and it hasn't looked great. It hasn't been pretty. It hasn't even been fun to watch, but it's been effective, and they have been winning. And the Steelers are, they're close to the top of the division. They've got the defense to carry them through some of Justin Fields' deficiencies, and I feel like he just gives this team the best chance to win. I want to see I'm interested to see what Russell Wilson brings to the table, but I don't know how long a leash I would give him. You're not paying him a whole lot. He's there on a 1-year deal, and if he does do something, he's going to be expensive. Whereas Justin Fields, not necessarily that expensive. He's winning. He's helping you win games, and you're already kind of in a groove with him. I'm not sure why the switch needed to be made, but it's there, and we're going to see Russell Wilson debut. I want to see how he handles kind of what's been going on with the wide receiver situation in Pittsburgh. They did manage to get Najee Harris going last week, so that will help. But I don't know. This almost feels like, okay, if you want to point to a moment in time this season where it got away from him in Pittsburgh a little bit, if it starts getting away from them in Pittsburgh, it's gonna be this moment where they decide, hey, Russell Wilson's making his debut while you are while you're a 4-2 team, about half a game back out of the division lead. So, but Russell Wilson making his start this weekend. When the Jets come in, I believe for Sunday night, when the Jets come in for Sunday night football, we'll have Wilson versus Rodgers in the AFC. If you want to sell it, there you go. The other big news. So this one, I hate to say that it kind of got buried amongst all of the big happenings that went on today, but Mike McDaniel came out and said he is looking at Tua Tagovailoa being able to play again this season from what he is hearing from Tua's doctors. Obviously, again, another scary concussion for Tua, but he's looking to come back probably here in the next few weeks. And it's a matter, I guess, the Dolphins trying to hold on without him. But I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure how to feel about Russ coming back this year. Tua coming back this year. Because he had 3 in 1 year. And it started with a bad concussion on a Sunday, and then it compounded on Thursday. And I don't, you talk about how Tua had the lessons of learning of being able to fall better and protect himself when he fell and things like that. But there he is. There's Andy Martinez. We're bringing him in right now. Andy, how's it going, man? Happy Tuesday. What a crazy day.
Oh man, it is a crazy day. That is for sure. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man. It's going good. Right now, we're on Hot Topics. We're looking at what Mike McDaniel said. The news that came out, I believe, yesterday about he's saying Tua is going to play again this season.
I mean, that's a something, man. I don't know if I would. I understand you want to win, and I understand you want to try, but that's asking a lot out of a guy with with that many concussions and that being that serious, man. That's a high risk. I'm not sure a high reward kind of situation out of that.
No, especially for him. And I'm looking at it. They got the next two games are easy for them. If they're looking at him coming back in the next couple of weeks, the next two games are easy for him because it's Colts and Card. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but they're not team. They're not world beaters as teams. It's Colts and Cardinals, and then you go to the Bills. They didn't really give a time frame. They said probably before the end of the season. But man, it's going to be scary out every time. When he gets back, it's going to be scary every time he's out there
Yeah,
on that field.
yeah, I think so. I think everyone's going to be, I mean, obviously he's going to be, a little gun shy, whether he's, consciously or subconscious about it. Again, all it takes is one good hit and it's done, man. And that's a thing, man. That's because it's not just you; it's your family, the people who depend on you. Again, you're a young guy. You don't want to go out like that and
Mm-mm.
ruin it, for the rest of it. You look at a guy like Andrew Luck. He was like, "Hey, I'm out." He made
Yeah.
the call. I'd rather be safe and figure it out on the back end of it and figure out life after football, instead of going out there and who knows, seriously ending something too soon.
Yeah. And I would say this like, if he comes back and it happens again, you're done. Like, we'll figure out the money, figure out the contract, but you're done. Like, they need to put some kind of clause or something in there in his contract to protect Tua from Tua. Because if now we'll say this, he does give Miami the best chance to win because it hasn't been Huntley, hasn't been Thompson, it hasn't looked great. I know they got the win over the Patriots, but the Patriots are, again, they aren't world beaters either. So they had I believe they had a bye week this week, and yeah, I'm this just makes me real nervous for Tua Tagovailoa. But moving on to game reactions, we're going to start with your San Francisco 49ers, 36-24 over the Seattle Seahawks to kick off week number 6 on a Thursday Night Football. Andy, you're the Niners guy. I'll let you react to this first.
Man, what a good showing! We actually were successful in the red zone, which had been, leading up to this, had been a hard thing for us to get over that hump of being, we'd get there and then we couldn't do anything. We kick a field goal. It's hard to do. We were successful in getting finishing in the red zone. You know, it helped that we got a couple interceptions. It was a good game. Seattle's not a bad team. We just we outplayed them, and it looked like a good what we can do. I know Jordan Mason did get hurt there, so we had other guys step up. But yeah, I think overall it was a great game for us.
Yeah, the Niners looked really good. The Niners look better than they have the last couple weeks, and I think that part of that's due to health. Although you did have the scare with Jordan Mason and the shoulder, we'll see how that goes. They do get the mini bye, so he gets some time to recover. But he's stepped up and still done really well in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. But that team is still missing CMC. Purdy is still. I like what Colin Cowherd said for this season. If I'm looking at the season as a whole, not just in this game, for Brock Purdy, he's playing. He's now coming back down to the mean. He's starting to come back down to earth a little bit. We're starting to see. I don't want to say regression, but I think the game is catching up to him. I think teams are figuring out how to play him, and especially now that he is the focal point with McCaffrey out. But still a well-coached team. Kyle Shanahan is still one of the best game planners in the business. He's still one of the best play callers in the business. And some of the things that they're doing with Debo, some of the things that they're doing with Ayuk, Kittle's starting to get in the mix now. And you start to see a Niners team that's beginning to roll, and now they're in first place. Now they're back where everybody thought they should be. They're probably not with the record that they thought they should have, but they have the record that they're back in first place and kind of in control of this division now. On the other side, though, was Seattle. Geno Smith, 2 interceptions. Kenneth Walker had some good runs. You had some good catches from DK Metcalf, but he was only Here's the thing. DK Metcalf is the only guy that I know of who could have 3 catches for 100 yards and be pissed about it. But he was 3 catches for 11 targets. And you saw the footage of him getting on the headset and kind of yelling at the offensive coordinator. And again, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, was there more to this story in Seattle than we think?
Yeah, I think Seattle still has to figure out, what they are and where they're going with it. But again, you can't have. It's hard to come back when you have 2 interceptions like they did. Turn over the ball. Again, like you said, their run game. They have to get that going. More. I feel like, to really get that pressure off of Geno Smith, so he's not making those type of mistakes. But Seattle's, they're going to be in there. I think they can still have some very winnable games, and be that upset that that they in some of that tougher competition.
I'm not counting them out because again, they are. I do agree that they are a team that can compete with almost anybody, but their next 4 games don't get easy. It's at Falcons, home against the Bills, home against the Rams, at Niners. And if they want to even have a hope of making a run at the playoffs, they got to win, I think, at least 2 of those games. But even if they lose 2, you're still right back at 5-5. And if you lose to the Niners again, I think that erases all hope of you even thinking about having a chance of the division. And then you got some NFC wildcard stuff mixed in there too with, against the Falcons and the Rams. I don't know. I'm not saying they're a team that plays down to their opponent, but they're clearly a team that you match them up against some of the other teams in this division, and they got talent, but I don't know if they have the gas tank.
Yeah, I think as we get further in this season, I think that's going to be a big test for them to see, hey, how long can they hang at a level where they could beat anybody, or are we going to see that rough decline, and then it shows up like, man, Seattle's kind of what we thought they might be at the start of the season.
And Mike Macdonald's not far into his coaching tenure too, so I think there's you got. I don't know about giving him grace, but there are some rookie mistakes that I feel like you got to open up to be made. One of the big games this week, though, was the Commanders and the Ravens, and this, to me, was the coming back down to earth game for Washington. They hung in there. It wasn't like they completely rolled over and just started getting kicked, but they hung in there. At the end of the day, though, it was just clear Baltimore's a better team.
Yeah, I think that really showed, especially the veteran leadership of, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. They just really showed that, yeah, like you said, they are the better team. They are those AFC contenders. And, don't get me wrong, like to be only down, 1 score is with a team like that is man, kudos to that defense. And that offense for keeping them in that game. But yeah, it's I think it kind of settles it down a little bit. But again, the Commanders still looked really, looked good against the Ravens team.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels didn't throw an interception. I feel like they were really missing Brian Robinson in this game. I believe he was out with injury. I don't see him popping up on the stat sheet. So, they did have to rely on Austin Eckler a little more and Jaden Daniels' legs, but they were clearly missing the run game in this. Daniels didn't have a bad game, though. He didn't throw an interception, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kind of put up the better stat sheet than Lamar Jackson did. But, Lamar Jackson's always going to be the man with his legs. And, of course, Derrick Henry going over 130 yards as well in this game. Again, this was just, all right. It was a measuring stick game for Washington to kind of see this is where they're at. This is who they are. And this is how far they have left to go. And to be able to go in and hang in there with a team that is looking more and more like a Super Bowl contender every week, to me, that's shown a lot of growth. It's a kudos to Dan Quinn for getting the defense ready, because this, honestly, it could be a blowout whenever you got Henry and Lamar Jackson both on the field. And kudos to guys like Terry McLaurin. Kudos to guys, like Austin Eckler, and just they're really well coached. They're going to be one of those teams that you look at this offseason when free agency comes up, and they're like, okay, they need to add some fuel to the fire. But Jaden Daniels is it. I mean, him and Terry McLaurin are, dude, to use the phrase, he's scary. And I don't, especially with the game we're about to react to, there's no one in that division that I feel like can overtake them.
Yeah, it seems like as long as the wheels don't come off the car, man, like the Commanders are going to hold on to that division. They look really strong again for a young team to be as good as they are and as consistent as they have been for these 6 weeks. Man, they've looked really really good, and I think it can only go up from here.
Yeah, they're a game ahead of Philly, Dallas, surprisingly. But I feel like as the season goes on, if Philly doesn't fix what they need, they get fixed. And again, Dallas is going to be a theme throughout this show, I think. Not in a trolling way. There's just a lot of news with Dallas. I don't see them letting go of this division lead, especially barring, knock on wood, Jaden Daniels gets hurt. But I don't see them. Their defense could be better, but I don't see them letting go of this division lead. Now the Ravens, on the other hand, of course, the NFC North is always tough. It's always kind of a division that is going to be close. They're 4-2. They got, I believe, they're half a game ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers are making a quarterback change. Excuse me. But I mean, this is another team like the Ravens. I don't see them letting go of this division lead. Cleveland's a mess. Cincy's a mess. Pittsburgh can't figure out who they are. Don't get me wrong. This division always finds a way to be close, but the Ravens just look different this year.
Yeah, I think we've really come to see, we kind of guessed it beforehand to see that dual threat of Jackson and Henry, what they were going to do. And, now that they've really come with the game plan, I think it's really going to show. And if they can stay, if they stay ahead in this division and take that lead and win these games, man, they are going to be unstoppable.
Yeah. And Baltimore, I'm trying to pull up their schedule right now. Let me find their game. They're there. Baltimore's got some, they got some tests. They got the Bucks Monday night, the Browns and Broncos. Bucks probably their biggest test coming up on Monday, but the next three after that are Browns, Broncos, and Bengals. And I feel like they're going to steamroll over those teams, especially the Browns and Bengals before they play Pittsburgh, which could be for the division lead, depending on how Russell Wilson plays. But now we move on to the first of the several Cowboys topics we have. I was on hand for this one, and a lot of news coming out of this game alone. We're covering them in different sections, so if we don't get to one, hang on. We're going to cover it here in a second. The game itself. The Cowboys go up 3-0, and the Lions go down and score and don't look back. It almost rinse and repeat from the Saints home game and rinse and repeat from the Packers home game. I said it before the season started. I said it in preseason. I told you guys that Packers game was way more telling about the Cowboys than people thought, because you knew Dallas was going to stay status quo. You knew teams were going to figure out, hey, guess what? You punch the Dallas Cowboys in the face, they're not going to come back. They can't overcome adversity. They can't overcome a deficit. This is a team that is a front-running team. This is a team that they have to play with the lead. They have to play comfortable. They have to play where they are like, okay, we're not in trouble, because the moment they do, the moment they get behind, they fall apart. And you have 5 turnovers in this game, and the Lions just absolutely run you off the field. Nobody wanted to tackle. There were a lot of guys on that field making business decisions. And that's why David Montgomery, and now don't get me wrong, the way David Montgomery was running, you probably needed to make some business decisions. But, I mean, I expected the Lions to win. I didn't think it would. I thought it might be a double-digit game. I didn't expect complete and total domination.
Yeah, Dan Campbell went in there and was out for blood. And I mean, he was out. He didn't care. He wanted to make them look stupid, and he was going to do that, and he did that. He was trying to get the ball to a lineman the entire game. Like, he didn't care. Trying all these things. Dan Campbell was going out to humiliate the Dallas Cowboys, and he absolutely did it in high fashion, man. It was wild to see this team. I mean, just absolutely dominate, and with nothing to come, with no comeback at all.
It's almost like there was no game plan. They didn't know what they were going to do. The red zone, Dallas has been bad in the red zone for the last 3 years. And yeah, you're right. Dan Campbell went in there to be petty. He went in there to be petty towards the NFL. He went in there to be petty towards the Dallas Cowboys. And he was doing so while kicking their ass and taking every name he could, because I'm sitting there watching this game and I'm going, there's no way they're this bad. There's no way Dallas is this bad. Or it could be, and I'm trying to chalk it up to, okay, Parsons is gone. Okay, Lawrence is gone. But I think this would have happened with both of them in there. I'm sitting there like, is this team going to score 50 like the Bucs did earlier in the day? And they could have if they wanted to, but I think Campbell at that point was like, I made my point. We beat the crap out of him enough.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
they did it on Jerry's birthday.
Yeah, I mean, happy 82nd, man. Like, good Lord. Yeah, it's just it's a wild game to watch and to see. And I mean, you just didn't expect it. Don't get me wrong, we both picked the Lions to win. We said that they're the better team right now, and with everything going for them, they're on fire. But I mean, they went to AT&T Stadium and just lit the thing on fire and walked away from the ashes.
Yeah,
man. It was bad.
Yeah, and we'll get to the comments and everything later. Of course, the other big news coming out of it is the Aiden Hutchinson injury, but we got to move on to the Bengals-Giants game. We move on from one interesting game to one that you're sitting there like, yeah, this shouldn't have been on Sunday Night Football. Bengals get their second win of the season at MetLife Stadium. The Giants, another just awful performance offensively for the New York Giants. Their defense, I will say this, their defense made Joe Burrow's life miserable that whole night.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't give him a chance. I mean, the Bengals ended up getting the win, but they made him work for it for sure. But yeah, it was, for a Sunday night game, it was definitely a head scratcher of like, what can we not flex anything into this spot? It was it was a game. It happened for sure.
Not until a couple more weeks, I mean, you had Daniel Jones throwing the ball 41 times. Burrow didn't get a touchdown. You had missed field goals. Burrow did run for a touchdown, though. He had 4 carries for 55 yards. And they were letting Joe Burrow run on him with his gimpy knees and somewhat fragile body, which if I'm a Bengals fan, I'd be kind of scared about that. But no touchdowns for Joe Burrow. Chase Brown, I will say this. If there's one bright spot with Cincinnati that I'm sitting there going, man, he could be something, it's Chase Brown. He has really come on in these last few weeks, and he's had some big runs. He's had some good games. I don't think he's giving you the just raw talent, athleticism, and all-around danger that Joe Mixon does. But if you need an explosive play, he's becoming more and more reliable in the run game for the Bengals, and that's huge for Cincinnati.
Yeah, for sure. They have to get someone going up in that run game to take that pressure off. It looks like he's the guy right now, but we'll see if they can get that going and see how that progresses for them to maybe help them get down the stretch a little bit.
On the other side, you could tell that Daniel Jones was missing Malik Neighbors, although I feel like him and Darius Slayton were beginning to build a good rapport. And that could end up being a good combination for the Giants heading down the line. Daniel Jones is when he plays decently with Neighbors and Darius Slayton, but the defense for the Bengals was the story of this game, and Brian Burns was just all over that football field. He had a sack, he had a couple TFLs, but he was making big tackles. There was a hit he laid on Joe Burrow where it looked like I was like, am I watching a Goldberg match? Like, oh my God, man, he laid out Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't be letting you cannot be letting Burrow get hit like that. He's he's already not 100%, and those kind of hits are gonna just re-injure that. Could cause a new injury, and he'd be out again, and then here we go.
I will say this, the Giants have looked a little bit more competitive this year than they did last year. Part of that is because of the defense. Burns had a sack, Lawrence had a sack, Ojulari had a sack. They're a physical defense. They are a tough defense. Once Thibodeau gets back, he's going to be a factor, I think, in this defense again. But they're calling good defense. They're playing well. This could have been a blowout if Joe Burrow really got going to Ja'Marr Chase, and they held it within, a single possession game. We'll get more into it at 3 up, 3 down, but MetLife Stadium, I mean, it will factor it into this game. The field goals at MetLife Stadium have just been atrocious. It showed in this game with, what was it, 3-4 missed field goals in this game on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, and not just like, oh, he barely, like, horrendous misses, man. They were not good.
I mean, I believe they were saying there was some wind and weather and stuff there, but that Bass one was just awful. That was bad. But the Bills edge out the New York Jets. And before we get to Buffalo, I will say this about the Jets. I know everyone's all doom and gloom in New York right now. Don't get me wrong. You live in New York. You probably are going to be doom and gloom anyway. But they shouldn't be about this game. I get they lost, but the Jets looked different. The way that the game plan for the Jets looked better. They got Breece Hall going. They got the run game going. The defense played well. Aaron Rodgers was making good throws and good decisions, and looked like he was playing with calls that he liked. And that, of course, classic Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary. With the news today that Adams is going to the Jets, and now that you see how they look without Hackett doing the play calling, I wouldn't walk away hanging my head from this game.
No, I mean, they hung in there, and I mean, again, if it wasn't for that, that slip in the interception there at the end, if he makes that catch and they still have the ball, they still had plenty of time on the clock to get down there and score. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was like, oh, it wasn't like they lost at the last second. They still had time. It was just a bad slip and a good interception on the Bills'
and the
part.
other thing too is if they'd have made those 2 field goals, this would have been a 26-23 win for the Jets.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, between Lazard and Wilson, like, you could tell, but they're pretty even on targets, and those are the guys that, Rodgers is really starting to feel comfortable with, getting the ball, getting there. I mean, even a couple of those, where he threw, Rodgers threw it out there and just, with Wilson had those, the defense just kind of got in between them, got their hands on them. But man, they looked good. I mean, Rodgers was looking good. It looked like a different team, definitely than what we had seen for sure.
I mean, you read the stat sheet, it reads almost like a classic Aaron Rodgers stat sheet, maybe with one more interception than we had 23 35, 294, and 2 touchdowns. That was about as close to a classic Aaron Rodgers performance, maybe a little bit more yardage, but that was about as close to a classic Aaron Rodgers performance as you could get. And now with Davante Adams being there, I think it's going to end up looking different. He was already in New York when the trade officially went down. Like, this was going to happen. Yeah. Rodgers gets his best buddy back. So I mean, I'm not going to sit here, and I know we're probably going to get to this later in the show, but I'm cautiously optimistic that the Jets could end up at least being competitive, but I might be pumping the brakes there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with Devontae going to him, I think it really changes the dynamic of the team. Because again, you're gonna have, especially for defenses, right? You're gonna have guys who are gonna be doubling up, so that's gonna leave someone, in single coverage. So it's like I'm or open, depending on depending on how you run it. So you have, he's comfortable with Lazard and Wilson. You have Adams there as that always going to be that double covered guy. So like, man, that makes it tough on defenses. And Aaron Rodgers, you know, will do what he does and take advantage of that situation for sure. So it definitely changes the dynamic of the team a lot.
That's gonna do it for game reactions, guys. Sound off in the comments. Hey guys, we love to hear from everyone watching. Say hi, shout out your team, shout out how everything's doing. We're gonna have buy or sell. I want to hear you guys loud and proud on buy or sell. Last week was actually probably our most viewed show in the history of the show. So thank you guys for doing that. Also, guys, go check out the sponsor, Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. If you need any tech repair, if you need a new gaming PC, laptop, phone, anything tech related, Gabe could probably hook you up at the Phone Medic of Lubbock, Amarillo, and Canyon. But and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, guys. Hit that like button, get the notifications going. We are halfway there on Twitch. We are halfway to 50 on Twitch. And we want to do subscriber giveaways. We want to do fantasy stuff. We want to do some stuff that is strictly over on Twitch. So we need to get to that 50 so we can get to that affiliate status. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And once we hit that, this part ain't going away. We're still going to be here every Tuesday night, 8:30 for everyone that wants to tune in. This is going to be a little extra point. Maybe if you want fantasy advice, betting, we're going to find different ways to hook up with you guys via Twitch. But this part is not going away. So for anyone worried about that, do not worry. Now it is time for 3 up and 3 down. We're going to open up on the up list with Jordan Love. Got to hand it to him. He has come back from the injury, and he has not lost a step.
No, I mean, he's taken this Green Bay team under his control, and man, they look good. He really put it, he put up those numbers against, Arizona. And I mean, it's just, he looked, like I said, he hasn't lost a step. He got hurt early and came back and man, looking fantastic. Jordan Love he's really taken this Green Bay team to be real scary.
Yeah, no, Green Bay is looking really good right now. They've got all cylinders are firing, everything's clicking. They're being very efficient with the football. Jordan Love, again, 4 touchdowns. He had an interception, but a great passer rating. They got a big one this week against the Texans in Lambeau. And, I mean, I know it's early, but everyone's going to be talking potential Super Bowl matchup, one of them. Because I'm looking at the backers right now, they're contenders. If they keep Jordan Love healthy, they're contenders.
I mean, that the NFC North it's going to be a crapshoot, man. Between who knows who's going to win this. I mean, so I mean they could easily, with especially the key divisional game wins, they could take it. So it's hard to say, what's going to happen there. But yeah, they look really good, and Jordan Love's really leading that team like he should.
I almost wanted to put the entire NFC North on the up list this year.
How could you? I mean, all of them have a winning record. Like
all of them are above 4 wins.
Mm-hmm. Like it's the NFC North is a wild place right now.
Yes, yeah, it's very much not boring. Very much not boring. All right, it was only a matter of time before I did this, but after this week, they finally did what I wanted them to do, and showed me what I wanted them to show me. So next up on the up list is my Houston Texans. They went into Foxborough, got their first win in Foxborough, and absolutely throttled the Patriots. Joe Mixon coming back and doing what he did and running the way that he run was such a sight for sore eyes, man. Dameon Pierce, too. This is what this Texans team could look like. We have been waiting for this type of game from the Texans. They have played some opponents that were kind of subpar and played them close, but it looked like everything was starting to click for H-Town.
Yeah, I mean, you saw with again, like you said, with Mixon coming back. I mean, it really changed the dynamic of that team that they have to do. I know Stephen Diggs, he looked good.
Mhm.
So I think it's a good time for to be a Houston fan right now. They looked really solid. I think this is only just a good sign of things to come as they head down as we head to the really in the meat and potatoes of this season.
And they did it without Nico Collins, who, even though he didn't play this week, is still the leading receiver in the NFL. Like, I'm looking at, and Houston's got a comfortable lead in the division right now. They play the Packers, Colts, then Jets before they get to Sunday night at home against the Lions, which to me is probably going to be their real, if this is going to be the real measuring stick game of the year for Houston. And if they can do, they're not gonna face the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson, but if they can come in and if they can get a win against the Packers this weekend, that's going to be telling. But if they can go in and play the Lions and not get mopped up by them, that's really going to say something for this team for me. This week's top of the mountain goes to Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick. Rough start to the year for Caleb Williams, but these last 2-3 weeks, he has really flipped the switch and turned the corner and looked amazing.
Whether it be the hype train, everyone overhyping it, everyone getting real excited, or whatever you want to call it, nerves to get in there as a rookie, and whatever it is, looks like that settled down.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like, hey, I'm starting to get my feet underneath me. I'm starting to figure out what this league's about, how to play in this league, how to win in this league. And yeah, he looked, I think he had 4 touchdowns this
Yeah.
game. He was, he was looking really good. I think again, he's a big reason why this NFC North is an exciting division.
Yes, and now Chicago is really starting to look scary. Now you're sitting there going, "Oh man, here comes Chicago," because if Caleb Williams keeps playing like this, and they changed the game plan to them. Kudos to Chicago for not trying to square peg in a round hole with him and try and make him do stuff he's not comfortable with. They've changed up the game plan to involve Swift a little more. You're seeing Cole Kmet get involved. Keenan Allen coming back is a much welcome thing for them. He's made a big difference because now you have multiple threats at receiver and tight end if you factor in Cole Kmet. DeAndre Swift, he also had a rough start to the year, but now he's starting to get going, and the defense has been good all year. So Caleb Williams starting to come on and really start to make the plays and be what we thought he was going to be with the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, he earned it this week. And the Chicago Bears, watch out for them, man, because they're good. They're the reason that all 4 that I was going to write them off, but they're the reason I think all 4 teams in this division is going to be really interesting down the stretch.
Absolutely.
Now we went 3 up. Time to go 3 down. Sorry, Braden. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the down list this year after they get their first win in a pretty interesting fashion over the Indianapolis Colts. They go to London and then they get dominated by the Chicago Bears and get right back to what they have been doing all season. They're 1-5. We're talking about Doug Peterson getting fired when they come back to the States. Trevor Lawrence regressed back to the subpar performances he's put on all year. They keep trying to run Travis Etienne, even though Tank Bixby has been the hot hand. It is a mess in Jacksonville.
Yeah, 100%. They have, they have all this talent. They just, I'm not sure what's not firing, but yeah, it looks like, Peterson's not gonna. I mean, he's gonna be sent off, pretty soon. You'd have to guess so, right?
Unless they turn it around.
They got the maybe.
This week.
Maybe.
Early
But
morning game I got to get up for. Oh no!
So we'll see if he still has a gig, or if they still want to, if ownership still wants to get behind him. But it's it's with all this talent, this is the best. You've heard these things. Oh, this is the best. The Jaguars have ever looked, and starting into the season, this is the best team overall. But no, man, this is not a good team right now.
No, not at all. No, and I think they're stuck with Lawrence. So one other person's got to go. It's got to be Doug Peterson. Next up on the downlift, MetLife Stadium. What the heck? From breaking from destroying people's legs, and now people can't kick on that field. MetLife has to be one of the worst stadiums in the league, man. And it showed twice in primetime.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what, you have these, there's supposed to be, this whole system and how these fields are maintained and how they're kept and the standard. And I don't know if it's just, the conditions up there in New Jersey that just they can't sustain that, or what off, field, who's supposed to maintain that, whether it's the Jets or the Giants. You think that hey, can we split the cost of this? Can we figure this out? Can we bring someone in? But yeah, it doesn't. It's hard to, it's a dangerous stadium to play in right now.
Yeah, it's a lot and you hear a lot of the players. That's where CJ Stroud got concussed last year and had to miss 3 games. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was a bad weekend for MetLife Stadium this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just because of the football teams playing on it. Ready, this week's Factory of Sadness, and here we go 4 hours east of Amarillo to the Dallas Cowboys, man. There's not a whole lot you can say anymore. I'm starting to think the 6-11 prediction I gave them might be a little generous. I mean, if they keep playing like this, they may be stuck at like 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Dallas for sure. There's lots of, again, no one talk about not having, anyone, it doesn't seem like have any real cohesiveness that, from obviously from management to coaching to players in the field. The nothing, everyone's kind of, it seems like they're out in it for themselves, trying to, get along and just, not lose and then just get stomped to death. It's not looking good for Cowboys and Cowboys fans, or, it's a rough time.
I mean, yeah, and just they're the biggest brand in football. Mm-hmm. And we've said this time and time again, as long as they remain the biggest brand in football, what's going to change? There's not going to be a whole lot.
I mean, you don't need to. When you're still, again, until you're no longer America's team, then
you just signed Dak, and you've got CeeDee Lamb. You're sticking to your guns. And again, I've got some stuff teed up that we're going to elaborate on a little bit later in Buy or Sell. But you're sticking to your guns on a lot of things that are hurting this team, and it's just gonna. I thought they would just stay static because they would just stay good enough to remain relevant. No, they're dead set on walking themselves off a cliff and doing so with some very expensive players where they can't improve this team. And they're quickly becoming one of the worst run teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, again, it starts from the top and works its way down, man. It all rolls downhill, and it is showing right now that it is not a great place to be, and it is, it's definitely not fun to be in Dallas.
Nope, definitely not. Well, if you're a Cowboys fan, it was fun.
Yeah,
I had a good time. Well, that does it for 3 Up, 3 Down. Guys, again, just real quick, hit up our sponsor, Phone Medic of Amarillo Canyon and Lubbock. I linked them in the comments on Facebook. Go look them up. Go check them out. If you need some tech repair, hit up Gabe. And, tech repair, new gaming PC or laptop, new console, Gabe will get you hooked up, man. He'll get you taken care of. Also, again, like, share, subscribe, sound off in the comments, especially because we are about to hit up Buy or Sell. We're going to throw takes at each other. We're going to see if we buy these or sell these. And this is where I think we're going to have some interesting comments on some of the things that have happened today. First off, we mentioned it earlier. So this is the big question we wanted to ask. I wanted to know if the Jaguars win, is Doug Peterson done anyway? Buy or sell?
I'm gonna buy that. I think I at this point, even if unless they win out, if every win gets him to the next week, okay, maybe. But I think even if he wins, this next week, I think I think his time in Jacksonville is running very short.
I think if they win this week, I'm going to sell it on the basis that if they win this week, kind of what you said, if they win this week, I don't see them letting him go as soon as he gets to the States. But I don't see him surviving after this season. I think they're going to go try and find one of these hot shot offensive coordinators, a Bobby Slowick, a Ben Johnson, to try and turn this team around. But they aren't going to address the real problem, and that's GM Trent Baalke. And Trent Baalke has handed out bad contracts. He's made bad trades. He is right there squaring Shad Khan's ear. It has been well known for a long time in Jacksonville that Trent Baalke is the problem, and he is the reason this team is being held back. He is the reason this team is kind of stuck spinning the tires and not making use of the good talent that they have. Brian Thomas, if things were going right, he's on pace for being rookie of the year. And Trevor Lawrence we've seen what Trevor Lawrence can do. It's the start and stop nature of what's going on with Trevor Lawrence, to me, all has to do with the fact that the GM can't set this team up for success.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sad showing of management, and everyone said it that like you said, he is the reason it's not going well, and it's people are just going to be affected by it, and they're going to ruin. They have the possibility of ruining a great quarterback because of those bad decisions.
I mean, they go to the AFC Championship one year and they're picking in the top 10 the next. I don't get it with them. Next up, buy or sell. So the other big story coming up out of the Dallas game, which had a lot of big stories coming out of it, we all saw the Aiden Hutchinson injury and just how bad it was. I'll say this, of course, I was there working it with Fox. I was maybe 20 feet away from them loading him up in the ambulance, and he was in a lot of pain. There was a lot of concern on their faces. That cast that they had on his leg was huge. It was not good for Aiden Hutchinson. I didn't see the actual play, the actual injury until, it popped up on Twitter, but it was bad. And like bad enough to where it can change the trajectory of a career in some cases. So I want to ask this, if we're, I just want to keep it, obviously hopes and stuff for Aiden Hutchinson, but just want to ask this question with football regards Hutchinson's injury cost the Lions the Super Bowl this year.
Man, I'm gonna sell that. I don't think, don't get me wrong. That's a big. I mean, that's your big time. On your defense, that's a big thing to overcome. But I think this team is tough enough that they can. I think we're gonna see some other guys step up and try to do what they can to keep them. I don't know if that's going to keep them from being that Super Bowl team.
I'm going to buy this on the sense that I'm not discounting any of the grit that the Lions have, because that's their whole mantra is grit and being able to overcome things. I'm buying this on the premise that I have seen this before. I saw it with JJ Watt. I saw it when his body started to break down and he stopped being the player that we all knew he could be. And it started with one injury. Granted, it wasn't as gruesome as this one, but it started with his back and his, just the things that he battled through. And sometimes when you get a player that's like this, that works as hard as he does, that fires on all the cylinders that he does, all it takes is one, and then it starts to snowball. And sometimes now that you don't have that factor, that X factor on the defensive line for the Lions, teams can play you differently. Teams can protect the passer differently. You're not going to be getting as much pressure. You're not going to have that fear in quarterbacks that you usually would get with a guy like Aiden Hutchinson on the line. And I'm not saying it's going to cost them the playoffs. The offense is good. They've invested enough into their defense that they're not gonna just absolutely get run over. They're actually gonna stay pretty competitive. But if they don't make the Super Bowl again this year, I would definitely have to factor in and say it's Aiden Hutchinson. It's because they don't have that Aiden Hutchinson factor in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that it's definitely gonna be something to be hard to overcome for sure.
Next one. This one's yours. So I'll go first on this one. Jets are Super Bowl contenders with Adams. I'm actually going to sell this because I think Adams is going to make them competitive. I think Adams is going to get in there and help interpret the offense for the Jets a little bit better. But I don't think that makes them Super Bowl contenders. I don't think this is as big of a move for a team that has fired their head coach. They're working with an interim offensive coach, and they had to take play calling duties away from your quarterback's best friend. Adams will get in there and make the team competitive just by being on the field, but I don't think he's good enough to make them a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to sell on that too. I think it's going to, get them closer to, being a playoff team than they were, this week. So I think it's going to get them up there, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take them to the Super Bowl, especially in that AFC when you're going against teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens. I just don't think that's gonna be enough to stop that. But again, Adams is gonna bring a new dynamic to that team. That it's gonna, it's definitely for the first. I think it's gonna jumpstart some things, but I don't know if it's. I agree. I think it's not. I don't think it's gonna make them a Super Bowl team.
It's gonna help Garrett Wilson, but I think it's gonna. For you fantasy owners that do have Garrett Wilson, his targets and catches and stuff are probably about to drop once Adams gets on the field with Aaron Rodgers. So next up, and I got something for you on this one. You proposed this one too. Jerry steps back this year from the GM duties if Dallas finishes below 500. I'm gonna let the footage real quick. We'll give our I'll play the footage. We'll give our answers, and then I want to react to what is going on with this. But I'll let the footage kind of speak for itself. This was today on 105.3 The Fan, and this is kind of what has had everyone talking about Dallas, not in a good way, all day.
Jerry, I think the counter back when you said where are you going to get the players, you can't get them this week is, and you're aware of all the off-season topics.
Yeah, but what is your counter? What is your damn counter?
My counter
is. I really want to know where you would go get it. Now, don't tell me about should gotten a guy in the off season.
Why not?
This isn't a damn word argument just because I'm not arguing with you. I'm dealing with how we line up against San Francisco, not what I did wrong last week or last month or 2 months ago or 2 years ago. If I really gave you guys a list of all the things I've done wrong over the last few years, you couldn't be on this program for the next 5 years steady and go over it. But every now and then you do some right things, and at the end of the day, you add it up, and the rights give you a better spot than the wrongs. But if you think for any minute right now, there'll be one Super Bowl champion. What did the others do wrong? There's one Super Bowl champion. Now, we want to be that champion. And I'm sure not throwing the towel in today because of what happened out there Sunday. But I'm not going to sit here and waste a lot of energy, a lot of time. Let's talk about what I should have done back in 1907 or 2017. Ben, come on. I've got more time than that, and I actually don't even have time on this great show for looking back at decisions.
Okay, so Jerry, 1970, a little different from this past off season and building the team we're talking about today, which there was a lot of criticism that you guys didn't add, didn't spend, and don't add and don't spend, and are not aggressive enough with some of the problems that are still haunting the Cowboys today that we see play out on the field. That's the point of talking about the offseason.
I remember those criticisms very well. Okay, so what?
Are they playing out to be accurate?
What's your point? My
point is, it seems like
Listen, let me tell you what I'll do. About it. I will let us sit down and look at the decisions we've made over the last several years. Okay? I'll look at it. Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call with you over a radio and sitting here and throwing all the good out with the dishwater, you have got to be smoking something over there this morning. I'm not. And I really don't, and I don't even want our listeners to listen to me, to talk about, this is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to
So y'all
ask
get
why.
a job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you, you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there with that. You know, oh, hang on. Wants to autoplay. And Shannon Sharp, if you guys go out of your way, watch what Shannon Sharp says about that too. I think that makes my answer to where I'm selling. Jerry Jones has already pretty much come out and said, you are going to have to pry that out of my cold, dead hand. And once again, that was courtesy of 105.3 The Fan, which is a station that hosts Jerry Jones every week. No, if the Cowboys finish below 500 this season, he is not stepping back.
Yeah, I'm also selling. He's going to die in that position. Now, should he? Absolutely. But will he? Absolutely not. I mean, it just shows. I mean, again, it's old man yelling at clouds when you listen to that call, man. It's an 82-year-old man whose ego is bigger than his team, which is incredible. I think Shannon Sharp, said that too, is that everything, Jerry's ego is what's going to keep this team from ever becoming successful enough to win a Super Bowl, man. As long as this is not going to happen.
Yeah. And I've said this before that everyone and their dog knows what the Cowboys need to do. They got to tear this team down and rebuild it. They got to get rid of all the expensive stuff. They got to go out and make trades. They got to go out and get guys. Think of all the guys that you had available, guys that were from in your division that could have hurt other teams in your division, that were there, that were instant upgrades over what you had, that were instantly going to make this team competitive. And sometimes all it takes is one guy. One guy. You don't think that the Dallas Cowboys would not have been blown out had they had Derrick Henry in the backfield behind Dak Prescott? You know how much easier that would have made Dak's job? It would have made it great. It would have made it insanely easier. And I don't want to be the guy that calls this into question, because I know it's a commonality in just the way the world is now. But are we looking at something cognitively that is wrong with Jerry Jones to where he is just out of touch with everything that's going on? Because he doubled down on it and then tripled down on it after these trades were made and said, we are not going to be active at the trade deadline. What are you doing? This team is bleeding out at home on your turf in Jerry World. They are on the field bleeding out, and you are just going to sit there and watch it? You're going to sit there in your owner's box directly across from the Fox broadcast booth where you got guys commenting on your team, and you're just going to sit there with a sour face and watch it? I get it. Cowboys fans, and I know you're sitting there entertained by this rant, Cowboys fans are like Yankees fans or like some of these other blue blood fans that you have in every other sport. They can be the most pretentious. They can be the most annoying, the most overconfident, entitled fans that you can have. And I pity them, because they're going to have – Jerry could not go away for another 20 years. You're going to have a 100-year-old man making draft picks for you, negotiating contracts for you, determining the direction of this team for you, because he's not going to step down. He's not going to give it up. And you will not win. It could be 100 years before the Cowboys win another Super Bowl because of the things that Jerry Jones has done.
Again, I mean, you just look at the history of the team, things that he's going to stick around with. He's not going to make a change. Again, Jason Garrett had a job there for, 8-9 years. And, they should have brought in someone sooner then. Mike McCarthy shouldn't be the head coach. He hasn't been successful. It's just, I don't, again, Jerry just wants to, well, I'm gonna be the reason this team wins, or well, he's gonna be the reason the team loses, but never take responsibility for it. It's just it's an incredible thing to see. Again, why aren't you bringing in these, some new blood into your organizational system to, hey, the game's different now than when you bought it. And again, like Shannon Sharp's, I think if you haven't seen, Shannon Sharp's comments on that call, you definitely should. He brings up a good point about, he has to win it on his own. Again, he fired Jimmy Johnson. He has to, because Jerry, the team he built is never going to win a Super Bowl with him there. And it's just it's a crazy thing. And again, you have all that money, you have the number one brand in football. Like there's no reason why, you aren't winning. And it's just, it's stupid, because who wouldn't, you tell us every day, who wouldn't want to wear, this cowboy star, but man, who wants to right now?
Nobody. And here's the thing. As long as it's like you brought up a great point. As long as that star is the number one brand in the NFL, Jerry it's going to be straight full speed ahead for Jerry. Status quo. Keep doing things the way that they've done. I've done the breakdown the last 2 seasons for the Cowboys. The Cowboys, I believe, have made 3 signings in the offseason outside of draft picks. And it's just when you look at who is available, when you look at who they could have traded for, the Texans gave a 7th round. I believe a 6th round pick for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs was a free agent. We already mentioned Derrick Henry. Saquon effing Barkley was out there. And you want to come at us and say you couldn't afford Derrick Henry, but you can afford to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in the league. You have $24 million in cap space still available, and you are going to sit on your hands at the trade deadline? What is happening?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. You can build through the draft, and I get that's kind of the way Stephen Jones has wanted to spin it. And kudos to Stephen Jones, because Jerry was dead set on drafting Johnny Manziel, and that would have been a horror show. But you want to, as long as the brand is still the most valuable brand in football and one of the most valuable franchises in sports, as long as he can go into the atrium of the Star and walk past those 5 Lombardis that are sitting there, that I laid eyes on this past weekend, and nobody else but a handful of teams has more than him, he's not going to do anything.
Nope.
He's not going to touch it. He's going to continue to make comments like we're all in after getting the brakes beat off of you at home in the playoffs. He's going to continue saying we're close after it's been the same result year in and year out. You're either winning one and going home, or you are losing in the first round. You are building a team that is not built to face adversity, that folds whenever they get punched in the face. They'll talk all the trash that they're Eric Cartman. They're Eric Cartman from South Park. They'll talk all that crap, but when Kyle punches him in the face, he cries to his mommy. Yep. That's what this team is.
Yeah, it's a wild thing to see, and just to see again the fact that he's doubling down, and can't even. I mean, he's like, hey, again, I'll find new guys to talk to. Just like, okay, like again, you called us. We're gonna talk about that. It's a wild thing, man.
Like, I can sympathize because Texans fans had. On a little bit different level, because it wasn't the owner, but we had to endure Jack Easterby. We had to endure, hey, it's all me when we win, but when things are going bad, I'm going to hide in the corner. It's been all that. It's different when it's the owner, because nobody's telling the owner what to do. And I guarantee you that there are very, 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 very few groups in the U.S. who could gather enough money to buy the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah,
and get Jerry away from this. Who could even make up an offer that Jerry would even not turn his nose up. But there's our monthly rant for that one. Let's move on to game previews. The lines are brought to you by ESPN Bet. These are as of today. We open up Thursday night. Denver goes to New Orleans, and we have the return of Sean Payton to the Superdome after he left and won a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints. Denver going in, they've kind of been up and down, but you've had some flashes with Bo Nix. Honestly, this could set up to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We'll see how it goes. Saints at home. You can't discredit that. But I mean, they started off hot and have really tailed off.
You're still flustered for me ranting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just it's hard for we'll see what the Saints could do against again a guy like Sean Payton and Bo Nix who are trying to figure it out, getting it together, and the Broncos going in there. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it should be an okay game for sure. Hopefully, keep that Thursday game streak alive this season.
Yeah, they broke it. Yeah, this isn't a divisional game for the first time in 6 weeks, which I kind of like that though. I kind of like having the first few games of the Thursday night slate being division games because they haven't been bad. You haven't had your typical popcorn matches, if you were to use a wrestling term, for the Thursday night games. It depends on which Broncos show up. It's interesting to see that they're 2.5-point favorites in this game on the road, because the Superdome is still a hard place to play. Whether the Saints are doing well or not, they will show up for that team. But I want to see which Broncos team shows up. Is this going to be the team that played very good defense, ran the ball? Now, actually, no, I just remembered why they're getting 2.5 points favorites, because we got to see what Spencer Rattler is going to do. He had some moments in the game last week, but Denver's got a good defense themselves, and they got a promising young quarterback that I feel like might be a little bit ahead of Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, so, it's gonna be a solid game.
So I think setting up, we both got the Broncos in this game. They get above 500, and I don't think they're not going to touch the division, but they're kind of hovering around the wild card if we're starting to look at the playoff picture now. But yeah, we both got the Broncos in this one. The big game this weekend though is going to be Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota opens up as 2.5-point favorites. This is the game I think everybody has been waiting for since the Lions got going and the Vikings exploded onto the scene as a 5-0 team.
Yeah, and for this to be a noon game is a crazy thing. Who'd expected when they made their schedule that this would be a real anticipated game. But yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think who wins this is really gonna set the tone for the division. And it's gonna be a solid game, man. I think.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I would say with Dan Campbell, showing that he wants to take no prisoners, and with this Vikings team coming off the bye, getting fresh legs, I think it's going to be real competitive out there.
It's interesting watching the Vikings because I'm watching the Vikings holding my breath, saying, okay, when is Sam Darnold going to turn back into a pumpkin? And even when there's times where it looks like it, the rest of the team will pick him up. Now they add some running back depth with Cam Akers, who probably won't play in this game, but he'll probably get back on the field for them in the next week or so. 2.5 points is close as far as the spread goes. And they gave them that because it's in Minnesota. And Minnesota is a very hard place to play, much like Detroit is. Mm-hmm. This very well could be, I mean, in a certain way, depending on how the seeding goes, this could even be an NFC Championship preview. I don't know how many divisional games have been, how many divisional teams have played each other in the NFC Championship. But this is one of these teams is making the wild card round, and one of these teams I think is going to end up as the top seed in the NFC. But this is going to be a test with Aiden Hutchinson out. You're not getting a warm up round without your top player that's not a quarterback on the field. And now it's got to be up to the rest of that defense to stop Justin Jefferson, to stop Addison, to stop everybody on that team. Aaron Jones And I can't see the Lions fully rebounding from losing Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe when they come back around to Detroit, but it's so hard to beat Minnesota at home.
It is. I went with the Lions because I think, even with, Hutchinson being out, I think the Lions were going to kind of bounce back from that, take this win that they had, this just beating that they gave the Cowboys, and take that into Minnesota and show them, show it's going to be real nitty gritty, a real gritty game for sure.
Yeah, no, it's going to be physical. It's going to be loud. This is going to be the game that I think like everyone's eyes is going to be on. And I wanted to pick Texans Packers too, because that's another game that's going to be, that's going to be one to watch, really one to watch. But this is too big. Like, this has big implications down the season for both teams. We'll go to the game you're probably very interested in watching. The Niners hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl rematch. Niners open up as 1.5 point favorites, which is interesting in this game.
Yeah, it definitely, when I did see that, in the betting line, I wasn't, quite expecting that. It's kind of been, a rough start, but, we're in Santa Clara, so that's always a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Chiefs are coming off a bye week. They're getting kind of their game plan going. It's going to be a tough game for us for sure. I would love to get a win off the Chiefs so bad. It's stupid. So bad. But, again, they've had our number, when it counts, and it's hard sometimes it's hard to beat that team,
I imagine the line is the way it is, and some people are going to be factoring in the fact that they don't have Rashee Rice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's out for the season. They won't have him, and he had been lighting up defenses. Granted, you still got Xavier Worthy. Kareem Hunt is back. They've got some guy. This is still the Chiefs, man. It's still Patrick Mahomes. They've still got a good defense. They still got to run against Chris Jones. This is a game where I look at the Niners and I go, man, they could use Christian McCaffrey. Man, they could use a healthy Jordan Mason. Man, they could really use this defense stepping up and being physical and just playing that lights out 49ers defense that they are usually playing. I'm sorry, Andy, but I don't see it happening this week. I know it's at home, but it's very hard to pick against the Chiefs.
No, I understand. I mean, again, I understand the pick. I just, I'm gonna pick my team every time, whether I have a chance or not.
Hey, you know what? I picked against my team and they won. So maybe you there. Maybe I'll listen to you there. Going on, we go to the Sunday night game. Another close spread. This one's surprising. Jets going to Pittsburgh and they open up as 1.5 point favorites. I imagine that has to do with the Davante Adams trade. I don't know if he plays in this game because he has the hamstring, but it's also integrating him into the system and kind of I'm sure a lot of the terminology is going to be familiar for him, but it's just how quickly can you get Davante Adams in and integrated into the Jets organization?
Yeah, I think, they're probably the favorites going in there because, again, you have Davante Adams. You also, it's, again, it's a day by day who's going to be their starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. And, whether you just can't get the commitment to it. So it's hard to say. Like, if you throw in, hey, Russ is healthy enough, we're going to throw Russ in there and see what happens. Who knows what's going to happen if you throw Russell Wilson in there. And I think that's probably a big deciding factor too on the call the way it is.
And not just throw Russ in there, but throw him in there. I mentioned this in Hot Topics before you hopped on. Throwing Russ in there, throwing to some receivers that are kind of discontent right now. We see everything that's been happening with George Pickens. The other receivers on the Steelers just haven't quite lived up to what that they've been. Najee Harris got going, and of course the Steelers defense has always been really good. But Russ is throwing against a Jets defense that has been rocking and rolling. Minus all the Hassan Reddick stuff, but they've been playing really well, and they're still a physical defense. It didn't look like they were letting off the gas this past week. They kept it close against Josh Allen. And it's just the Steelers offense has just been sputtering, even when Justin Fields has been out there making plays. It's safe to say we both have taken the Jets this week.
Yeah, again, I think they're going to take this. You know how close that game was with Buffalo, and now if you can get Adams plugged in there, even if he's not, again, even if he's maybe in there just a few plays, that's enough, you know, to disrupt the whole defense for sure.
Yeah, and I saw improvement out of this team on offense once Hackett was no longer calling the plays. So we have a Monday night doubleheader. I'm picking what I think is the better of the two games. Baltimore going to Tampa. They're 3.5-point road favorites. Tampa just throttled the Saints this past weekend, but Baltimore also played a good game against Washington. This is another clash of teams that I feel like could very easily be playoff contenders, division winners even in their respective divisions once we come down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean to see the Bucks, you know, pop off 51 up there. I think what Baker had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, Baker was cooking.
Like just, you know, of course in fantasy he's on my bench.
Oh yeah, I had that happen to me earlier this year too.
Has one of the best games of his life, and I'm like, all right, thanks, man, I appreciate it. And like if I were to put him in, that's enough to win my game. So it's a heartache. But no, I mean I think both are just on fire right now. Obviously, you know the Ravens are gelling right now with Jackson and Henry and everything else they bring. You know that defense is looking good. I think it's going to be. I don't know if they're going to pop off a ton, but man, I think this could be a really heavy shootout for sure.
One thing that I'm looking at and that I'm concerned is even though it was a 51 point, they put up 51 on the Saints. Baker still threw 3 interceptions. And this is a Ravens defense that you can do that against the Saints, who kind of were mirages to begin the year, but you can't do that against the Ravens. You cannot throw 3 interceptions against the Ravens because Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry will make you pay for it. Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, they will all make you pay for it. And hopefully Baker can get that cleaned up or clean it up a little bit. And, if he throws 1, okay, but not 3. If you throw 3, the Ravens are going to absolutely eviscerate you. But with that, even if he doesn't, I feel like the Ravens have the better team on the field in this instance, and I think you agree with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Ravens, they are that Super Bowl contender, and so yeah, they're really showing that with the team they're going to be and how tough they really are. So I think I don't think the Bucks are going to pull this one out.
You dual screening the double Monday night games this week? I think they got Peyton and Eli on it too.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah. I think they got Peyton and Eli switching back and forth between the games, but I'm gonna be dual screening it.
Yeah, we'll see how that Charger Arizona game.
They have just made it so you got to do contortionist tricks to watch all the games now. It used to be, hey, go to Buffalo's. You can watch all the games in one place, or spend an immense amount of money on Sunday Ticket and you can get all the games you want. Now you got to find them everywhere you want. I'm not looking forward to the Netflix games either.
Oh, Christmas. I think there's a game on literally every streaming platform.
Christmas Day, 2 games on Netflix, and one of them is my team. Sorry, Mom, I've got to spend Christmas yelling at the TV.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. Again, guys, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Remember to like, share, subscribe the channel, get your notifications on when we go live. Go to Spotify too. Follow us on Spotify. We will have the show up the next day if you want to listen to the audio version of this show. Definitely love hearing from you guys as well. Go visit our sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Again, for all your tech needs, if you need a console, if you need a screen fix, if you need laptop repaired, phone repair, or even if you need to do one thing that I'm looking at doing, I really need to get it done, is going and getting the speakers and charging ports cleared out. If you don't get those cleared out, your speakers will sound bad, your charging won't charge as well. And Gabe can actually, Gabe, either he can do it for you, he can find a way to get it done for you. But go visit the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, in Lubbock. Well, it's time for the extra picks. We're doing this via Prize Picks. I forgot to check in on what I had last week. I'm pretty sure I hit on a couple of them. So I was so busy with Fox. Trust me, you guys don't understand how chaotic that stuff gets. But it's time for the extra picks via Prize Picks. If you guys do not have the Prize Picks app, they are doing deposits they are matching deposits with different codes. I don't have one yet. I'd like to get one though. I may see if I can't get hooked up with one of those. But they are doing deposits matching, I believe, up to the first $100 for what you guys put in. But Prize Picks, basically what you do is you select I believe it's a block of 2, a lineup of 2. You can select as many as you need. Pick whether or not they're going to go over a certain amount or under a certain amount. They don't just do the NFL. With MLB, NBA, and hockey getting started, they will have picks for those as well. We stick to football, and with that, we're going to start off with Joe Mixon. I've got him going over 59.5 rush yards against the Packers.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think that's going to be solid. I think he, especially get him in that, back of the rotation. I don't see why he couldn't totally get over that.
I feel like this one's a little risky, though, because the Texans have had problems run blocking, and this is a solid defensive line. But Mixon knows how to run after contact, and he knows how to find the hole, and he knows how to get there. I don't think he's going to break 100, but I think he can get over 60 yards rushing on this one. Going back to one that did win me some money. I know he did before. Jaden Daniels right now over 240.5 passing yards for the Commanders this weekend. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps playing like he has been, man, that's I think that's very doable for him. I think he's again, he's really showing that he has what it takes to be real strong in this league. And yeah, I think so far his past performance has shown that he could totally hit that.
Yeah, and especially because they're up against the Panthers this week. And while the Panthers have been playing close, it looks like they're about to make the quarterback change again. Maybe Bryce comes back and gets a spark, but it is still the Panthers. And anyone that is playing the Panthers, I am taking the over on for them. And the big one this week, Justin Jefferson over 86.5 rush receiving yards. You know he's going to be targeted. You know that Sam Darnold's going to try and find Justin Jefferson. I know it's against the Lions in a tough secondary, but I kind of like over 86 yards for him.
Yeah, I mean, the three you picked, I think this one may be the hardest one to pay out because I think that, like I said, that Lions secondary is tough, but we'll see again. Like I said, he is going to be the main target for sure. But we'll see if he can get there.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got Justin Jefferson on my fantasy team too, so he better get over it. He better get a touchdown into that too. So it was hard not having him last week. But that's going to do it for us, guys, on the Extra Point. Andy, thank you for joining me, man. Love it every week.
Absolutely.
So, but guys, enjoy week 7 as we get started with the Broncos and the Saints on Thursday Night Football. And then, of course, a huge slate of football games ending with a doubleheader on Monday night. Again, guys, be sure to go like our sponsors. Thank you to everyone that is sponsoring us. Thank you to the Phone Medic of Amarillo and Canyon. Guys, again, like, share, and subscribe on all of the socials. Go like us on the Extra Point. We do share the news of the day updates there and stuff too. And then, of course, follow us on Spotify and listen to us the next day. If you missed the live broadcast, sometimes the video does take a little bit to catch up, but I will have the audio version of the Extra Point up the next day. Until then, guys, for Andy Martinez, I'm Ryan Justice. Goodbye and good night.